Hey YouTube, how's it going? Got a great product to review for you guys today. This is the brand new Hobbyking Redhead Pulsejet. This is the first in their Jet series. This is before, pre-release before their fabled turbine, but you can buy this on their website. I do believe it is just under $100, and it's pretty expensive to ship. It's about $40 to ship from Hong Kong to the US. But let's take a look at this and let's see, first of all, let's see what the quality is and then why they would make this before they built the turbine. So the first thing I noticed is I really like the retro box. This seems to be a copy of the original Dynajet Redhead jet from the 1940s through the 60s. It's a very, very cool design, and I'm hoping that the engineering is of the same quality, but we'll see about that. Alright, wow, so in the box this is incredibly well packed. You've got the jet separated with some great foam inserts and air packing. Up here at the front, this looks like your 20,000 volt ignition system. So let's take a look at this really quickly. Very, very well packed. And there's the box covered in some really cool looking warning and danger stickers. I will go into the legitimacy of those warnings in just a minute. But before we do that, let's get the jet pulled out. And here it is, the fabled and long-awaited Hobbyking Pulsejet. So, like I said, guys, very, very incredibly well packed, incredibly well insulated from any kind of vibration. And here on the intake side, we've got a big angry warning sticker, and there it is. Finally got the jet. So it also comes with a nice instruction manual, which is going to be incredibly helpful to those of you guys who have never run any jet, or especially pulse jets, because pulse jets are a little bit weird to deal with compared to most engines that you'll find. Alright, so let's take a closer look at some of this gear. Oh, one more thing. This looks like a bag of spare parts. Let's get rid of the box. Okay, so here's our bag of spare parts. We've got mounts for the jet. We've got what appear to be extra. We've got the fuel intake. We've got the venturi for the fuel that goes in here. And we've also got a spare reed valve, which is going to be very important because the reed valves inside these jets tend to be consumable parts. They are spring steel, they're flapping back and forth, and they do eventually go bad, so it's very helpful that Hobbyking supplied a second one. However, you're going to need more than two. They do go bad eventually, so I'm hoping that Hobbyking will make these affordable on their website, available just to throw right into the jet and keep running. So let's take a closer look at all this gear here, and I'll tell you what I think about it. All right, so I'm sure at this point some of you are asking, well, I heard all this talk about a Hobbyking turbine. Why aren't they coming out with a turbine? Well, I'm guessing that they are. I've heard of a few pre-production prototypes that a couple of flyers are getting to review. But the reason that I believe that the Pulsejet came out first is because Pulsejets are a lot easier to build, and they're actually, believe it or not, they're a lot safer because you don't have any spinning mechanics in there that could get unbalanced and blow out of the jet. Basically, the way these function is you've got a reed valve in the front that opens and closes. It'll open, let some air in, it'll mix with fuel, combust, slap the reed valve closed, and push the exhaust out the tube. And it reciprocates like that at full throttle until this jet gets red hot and either blows up the reed valve or runs out of fuel. So these really while they look and sound incredibly dangerous, they really aren't nearly as dangerous as a turbine is. They're a lot easier to build, there's less moving parts, and therefore, because there are less moving parts, there's less things to go wrong. And I gotta say, I'm not really impressed with the build quality of the tube. Let me show you guys an up-close view of that. Okay, so I'll bet you guys can see already how kind of cheesy these welds are. It looks like there was a lot of slag there, and then they kind of haphazardly ground the welds down. For a $100 jet engine, it's really I don't know. It's really not that terrible, but it's not something that I would trust to actually be flying. You'll see that there's a lot of extra slag up here where the head of the engine attaches. And then if we could see in the exhaust tube, oh, that does not look good. Zoom in. Okay, there we go. Yeah, do you see the bunch of leftover stuff there? At least the tube was filled with some kind of shielding gas like argon while it was welded, because we don't see a lot of corrosion back down in there. But it's not round. It's almost oval shaped. Let me pull off the head and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So if you look down carefully through the combustion chamber, you'll notice that the tube is kind of egg-shaped. And that's a problem, because the whole operating principle of these jets is on resonance alone. So if the tube is egg-shaped, it's not going to get the proper resonance to run the jet at maximum efficiency, so you're going to have some trouble starting it, and you're also going to lose quite a bit of thrust. I'd be surprised if this puts out more than maybe 2 pounds of thrust total. But let's go ahead and take a look at the head of the engine and see if that's, take a look at the build quality of that. So here's the head. It's got this nice angry warning sticker. Warning, please read instruction manual before use, because pulse jets are dangerous and evil and will kill your friends and family. Not really, but that does seem to be the myth that is perpetuated about these things. The intake side looks really amazing. This is some very well CNC machined aluminum. I'm very impressed with the job they did there. That's where the starter and the fuel venturi are going to go, right in there. And here's our reed valve. This is the spring steel piece on the back that flaps in and out. And to change that after it burns out, all we've got is we've got a little hex back there, and you can just kind of pull this whole assembly off to change the reed valve. So this head looks like it's almost exactly a copy of the old school Dynajet red head engines, and I'm really impressed with this. Actually, this is not bad at all. So let's put these back together. I will say though, all of a sudden this ring just came loose, so not quite sure what to make of that. But I don't think it really bodes well for the construction of the engine. Have to say, it's making me a little nervous. Alright, so here's the big crazy igniter of doom here that came with the engine. It's kind of cool that they included this igniter for free. You plug in, I believe, a 3S LiPo back here and strap it together. Another great warning sticker. You know, I should put these on my tools, on my toolbox or on my radio box. Those are actually really kind of entertaining. And they've got this big, you know, bomb release switch up here on the front. But this, I'm guessing this is just a little 20,000 volt resonance circuit and a DC to AC chopper for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take these hex screws off and show you guys how this circuit is built and what quality it's built to. But we'll take a look at this. We'll see if it's fused, especially because if these aren't connected to anything, sometimes if the circuit is not fused, you can blow up the circuit when you turn it on. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I've got the screws out. Man, they've even got danger molded into the plastic. This one's going to be fun. So let's open it up here and let's see what we've got. Okay, so here's the circuit. There's the input for your LiPo. Here is the switched side. This is the high level output. We've got some more screws there to the actual inside of the circuit that is shrouded. So let me take those off and let's see what we find down in there. All right, so we've got that cover taken off. Let's see what we've got here in the high voltage converter section. So the circuit, unfortunately, is potted. So if you blow, which means it's filled with a special kind of potting epoxy to make sure that none of these get moved around or broken off. But the unfortunate part to that is if you blow up any of the circuitry, you cannot service it. So you will need to buy a new box. Hobbyking sells them for, I think, 26 bucks or around there. So it's not a huge deal. But it is kind of a pain waiting on the shipping, I'm sure. Very simple circuit we've got here. We've got one little transistor, a primary transformer. We've got a power MOSFET, which I think is for chopping it up into AC. That actually might be the first one's job. Also, a couple of capacitors, and we've got our high level output. This is our secondary transformer. So very, very simple circuit. There's not a lot going on here, but it is not fused. So what that means is if you drive it too hard, you will blow it up. So if you short the leads, if you drive it too hard, if you keep the leads open for too long, it will blow up. What I'm going to see if I can do is connect a fuse to the low level input from the LiPo to see if I can protect this from overcurrent. But that'll be a project for another day, guys, and I will let you know how that turns out. But other than that, very simple design and construction. I am very impressed. This is actually pretty high quality stuff. The switch appears to be pretty high quality as well. So let's get this all hooked up to the jet and see what we have to do to take it outside and run it. Okay, so here are the things that you will need to get your jet started and run properly. In order to mount it, it comes with some pieces of mounting hardware here, rings for the combustion chamber and the exhaust tube. I recommend mounting it to a test stand your first couple of runs. Don't just throw it in an airplane immediately. You will also need Tygon fuel tubing and a fuel tank of some sort. Now, you can run this on almost any kind of fuel. I've heard people run these on gasoline, which is what it was technically designed for, glow fuel, kerosene, Coleman lantern fuel, probably lamp oil too. These are not picky as long as it combusts really well when it's heated in air. I always recommend a fuel filter. It's less necessary because this is not a reciprocating piston engine, so there's no actual parts scraping back and forth. But for the extra couple of bucks, who knows, it might help keep your reed valve clean. It might help keep your spark plug clean. So every time I run something on fuel, I always recommend a high quality fuel filter. You're going to need your igniter box, and you're also going to need a 3-cell LiPo battery to run it. And keep in mind, guys, the way that you start these is by blowing air into them. And here it has a Schrader type air valve. So if you hook a bicycle pump onto there and just push down a couple of times, that should be enough to get the engine started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount this to my test stand. I'm going to fuel it up, and then we're going to take it out and burn it. Alright guys, unfortunately I could not run the jet up for you tonight. And the reason that I could not do that is because this is the Venturi from the engine here. And you'll see that the pressure start intake right here is a Schrader type valve, or at least it's supposed to be a Schrader valve. It's actually slightly larger on each side. It's about a 0.5 millimeter across, larger than a Schrader valve should be, so it does not fit into the thread-on pumps. It'll fit into a clip-on type like a bicycle pump, but I don't have one that is powerful enough to get the engine up to 40 psi to ignite it. So keep an eye on the channel in the next couple of days, and I'm sure that I'll get this fired up to show you guys really how this engine performs. So if you like this video, guys, don't forget to rate, comment, subscribe so I can keep making more for you, and I'll see you next time.